First contact. For nearly 3 decades, the coalition of free worlds had been locked in a brutal stalemate with the hegemony. 17 diverse species united against the expansionist empire, but neither side could gain a decisive advantage. Battles stretched across dozens of star systems, with strategies and tactics that had grown predictable to both sides. Commander Zerashan of the Coalition scout vessel Distant Horizon never intended to change the course of galactic history. Her mission was routine: monitor hegemony fleet movements along the contested Cygnus border. But when her ship's stealth systems failed during a close pass of a hegemony patrol, everything changed. "Evasive maneuvers," she shouted as hegemony disruptor fire tore through the Distant Horizon's hull. "Get us out of sensor range." Navigation Officer Tulik's forehands flew across the controls. "Drive core damaged, Commander. We can't reach FTL." "Find somewhere to hide," Zerashan ordered, clutching her command chair as the ship shuddered. "Anywhere." The ship's sensors detected a small yellow star with multiple planets. It wasn't on their charts, an unexplored system far from established routes. "Perfect. There," she pointed. "Third planet. Atmosphere reads breathable. We can make emergency repairs." The Distant Horizon limped into the system, trailing plasma and debris. They barely managed to control their descent through the atmosphere of the blue-green world before crash landing in a remote forest region. "Status report," Zerashan demanded, picking herself up from the deck. Chief Engineer Kolmar shook his head, his scaled skin reflecting the emergency lighting. "Bad, Commander. Drive cores beyond repair with what we have on board. Communications array destroyed. We're stranded." "Atmospheric analysis complete," Science Officer Vex announced. "Nitrogen-oxygen mix compatible with our physiology. But there's something else. I'm detecting artificial signals, billions of them." "Impossible." Zerashan moved to the sensor station. "This system isn't in any database." "Nevertheless," Vex continued, "this planet is inhabited by a technologically advanced species. And based on these readings, they've never made contact with the Coalition or the hegemony." Within hours, their presence was discovered. The humans, as they called themselves, approached with caution but also curiosity. Unlike many first contacts in galactic history, there was no panic, no violence. Instead, the humans offered help. What followed changed everything. The Coalition crew shared knowledge of the galactic community and the ongoing war. Earth's governments, already united under the Global Defense Initiative after decades of their own conflicts, recognized the threat the hegemony posed. If they discovered Earth, humanity would have no choice but to fight or submit. They chose to fight before the fight came to them. Using the salvaged technology from the Distant Horizon, human scientists made leaps that would have normally taken centuries. Propulsion, weapons, shields, all adapted and in many cases improved upon by human ingenuity. The Coalition crew watched in amazement as the humans accomplished in years what had taken other species generations. 5 years after the crash landing, Earth launched its first true warship. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the HMS Thunderchild, marveling at how far they'd come. The ship represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a fusion of Coalition technology with human innovation. It was larger than most Coalition vessels, with a sleek, predatory design that reflected its purpose. "All systems online, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson at Operations. "Engine room reports full power available." Elena nodded. "Communications. Inform GDI Command that we're ready to depart." "Message sent and acknowledged," replied Lieutenant Park. "We are cleared for departure. Commander Zerashan sends her regards." The Colchan officer had become Earth's primary advisor and ambassador. She and her crew had chosen to remain, helping humanity prepare for what was coming. "Navigation, set course for the Proxima Centauri transit point. Let's test our FTL capabilities." The massive ship rose from Earth's orbital shipyard, its engines glowing with controlled power. Minutes later, it vanished into the darkness, leaving only a ripple in space-time. The Thunderchild's mission was to establish contact with the Coalition, offering Earth's assistance in the war. But fate had other plans. 3 weeks into their journey, after several successful FTL jumps, Sensor operator Lieutenant Chen detected something unusual. "Captain, I'm picking up distress signals. Coalition emergency band." Elena frowned. "We're nowhere near Coalition space." "It appears to be a civilian transport," Chen continued. "Signals indicate they're under attack." Strategic Officer Williams, who had studied all the information provided by Zarashan, brought up tactical displays. "If the hegemony has pushed this far into neutral space, the situation is worse than we thought." Elena didn't hesitate. "Battle stations, navigation, plot intercept course." The Thunderchild emerged from FTL near a small asteroid field where a bulky transport vessel was desperately trying to evade 3 sleek hegemony warships. The transport's engines were damaged and its minimal shields were failing. "Open a channel," Elena ordered. "All frequencies." Lieutenant Park worked his console. "Channel open. Attention hegemony vessels. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the HMS Thunderchild representing Earth. Cease your attack on the civilian transport immediately." The response was immediate and dismissive. "Unknown vessel, this conflict doesn't concern you. This transport carries fugitives from hegemony justice. Leave or be destroyed." Elena's eyes narrowed. Tactical analysis. Williams studied his readings. "Their ships are Striker-class hunters. Fast, well-armed, but designed for pursuit rather than head-on combat. They're scanning us but can't penetrate our adaptive shielding." "They don't recognize our design," Elena noted. "They don't know what we're capable of. Let's use that." Tactical. Target the lead vessel's propulsion systems. Precision strike only. "Target locked," confirmed Williams. "Fire." The Thunderchild's main cannon fired a focused energy beam that sliced through space and struck the hegemony vessel with surgical precision. The enemy ship's engines died instantly, leaving it drifting. The other 2 hegemony ships immediately broke off from the transport and turned toward the Thunderchild. They fired simultaneously, energy weapons impacting the human vessel's shields. "Shield status?" Elena demanded. "Shields holding at 97%, reported Williams, surprise evident in his voice. "Their weapons are less effective than we anticipated. They're used to fighting coalition ships with predictable shield harmonics," Elena said, remembering her briefings. "Ours are different. Return fire, disable their weapons systems." The Thunderchild moved with unexpected agility for its size, positioning itself between the attackers and the transport. 2 more precision shots left the remaining hegemony ships effectively neutered, floating helplessly with disabled weapons. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the transport." "Put it through." The main screen, filled with the image of a tall, elegant being with iridescent skin and large, expressive eyes. "Unknown vessel, we are the Starlight Seeker, a civilian transport carrying refugees from the Andromeda sector. You have our eternal gratitude. May I ask, what species are you? Your ship design is unfamiliar." Elena stood tall, aware of the historical significance of this moment. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of Earth. We are humans, and we've come to join your fight against the hegemony." There was a moment of stunned silence before the alien responded. "Humans? We have no record of your species in our database." "That's because we're new to the galactic community," Elena explained. "We encountered a coalition scout ship that crash-landed on our world 5 years ago. They told us about the war." "And you built this ship in 5 years?" The alien couldn't hide their astonishment. "The first of many," Elena confirmed. "We intended to make peaceful contact with the coalition, but it seems we found ourselves in the middle of your war already." The alien's expression shifted to something like hope. "Captain Vasquez, our ship was bound for Coalition Outpost, Gamma 7. If you would escort us, I believe there are many in the Coalition leadership who would be very interested in meeting you." As the Thunderchild escorted the damaged transport to safety, word spread quickly through subspace communications. A new species had entered the fight, one with technology that could change everything. The Coalition commanders at Outpost Gamma 7 were initially skeptical, then amazed as they reviewed the sensor logs from the Starlight Seeker. The human ship had disabled 3 hegemony vessels without sustaining significant damage. something that would have cost the coalition at least 2 ships of similar size. Within hours, the outpost was buzzing with activity as officials prepared to welcome these newcomers. Some were cautious, others excited, but all recognized that the stalemate that had defined the war for decades might finally be broken. When Captain Vasquez and her senior officers stepped onto the outpost for the first official diplomatic meeting between humanity and the coalition, they were greeted by a delegation of 7 different species. At their head stood High Commander Giral, a veteran of countless battles against the hegemony. "Captain Vasquez," Giral began formally, "on behalf of the Coalition of Free Worlds, I welcome you and your species to the galactic community. Though, I wish our meeting came in times of peace. Perhaps your arrival is exactly what this war needs." Elena nodded respectfully. "High Commander, Earth stands ready to assist. We've studied the hegemony's tactics and technology based on Commander Zarashan's information. We believe our different approach to warfare might provide the advantage the coalition needs." Giral's expression showed curiosity. "Different approach? The coalition has been fighting defensively for decades," Elena explained. "You've adapted to their tactics, but so have they to yours. We bring new perspectives, new technologies, and most importantly, unpredictability." As the diplomatic discussions continued back on the Thunderchild, Lieutenant Chen was monitoring communications channels when he noticed something unusual. "Commander Williams," he called, "I'm intercepting increased hegemony fleet movements near the Cygnus border." Williams studied the data. "They're responding to our appearance. This isn't just a routine patrol adjustment. They're mobilizing." On the outpost, Elena received the update during a break in negotiations. She immediately brought it to Giral's attention. "They're concerned," the High Commander concluded. "Your ship defeated 3 of theirs without difficulty. They recognize a potential shift in the balance of power." Elena's expression hardened. "Then we should give them something to really worry about. High Commander, with your permission, I'd like to propose a joint operation." Giral leaned forward. "I'm listening, Captain. The hegemony has grown comfortable with how this war is fought. Let's show them that everything has changed." As plans were developed, news of the human warship spread throughout coalition space. For the first time in years, there was hope that the war might not end in defeat or eternal stalemate. The human warship had entered the fight, and nothing would be the same again. Shifting tides news of humanity's entrance into the galactic war spread like wildfire through both coalition and hegemony space. Sensor footage of the Thunderchild's effortless defeat of 3 hegemony warships became the most viewed data transmission in coalition history. In hegemony territory, the same footage was classified immediately, with only high-ranking officials allowed access. 6 months after first contact, Earth had launched 5 more warships to join the Thunderchild. Each incorporated refinements based on battle data and coalition technical exchanges. The human fleet was small but formidable, with ships designed specifically to counter hegemony tactics. Admiral Coda Nix of the Hegemony Imperial Fleet paced the command deck of his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest. The holographic display before him showed the positions of coalition forces, including the distinctive signatures of human vessels. "How is it possible?" he demanded of his strategic advisors. "They've advanced from a pre-FTL civilization to building warships that can challenge our best in less than 6 years." Strategic Commander Vex Mora had no satisfying answer. "The humans appear to possess an unusual capacity for technological adaptation, Admiral. They don't innovate gradually as most species do. They make conceptual leaps. Coalition intelligence suggests they've spent most of their history fighting each other, perfecting the art of warfare against thinking opponents." Nix's 4 eyes narrowed. "And now they've turned that expertise against us." "There's more," Vex Mora continued reluctantly. "Our agents report that human tactics are unpredictable. They don't follow conventional strategic doctrines. They improvise, adapt during battle in ways our predictive models can't anticipate." "Numbers," Nix growled. "We still have the numbers. Deploy the 7th Fleet to Outpost Kronos. Let's see how these humans handle a true hegemony battle group." At Coalition Command, a very different conversation was taking place. High Commander Giral and Captain Vasquez, now promoted to Admiral, were reviewing plans for a major counter-offensive. The hegemony expects us to continue our defensive posture, Giral explained, gesturing to the strategic display. For 28 years, we've focused on protecting our core worlds. It's kept us alive, but it's also allowed them to dictate the terms of engagement. Elena studied the display. Your forces are spread too thin. You're trying to defend everywhere, which means you're strong nowhere. Exactly, Giral agreed. But with your ship's enhanced capabilities, we can take a different approach. The plan they developed was bold. Concentrate forces at key strategic points rather than spreading them across all possible targets. Human vessels would serve as rapid response units, using their superior speed and firepower to counter hegemony thrusts before they could gain momentum. It wasn't just human ships making a difference. Human tactical officers were assigned to Coalition vessels, bringing fresh perspectives to crews that had been fighting the same enemy, the same way for decades. The first test of the new strategy came sooner than expected. Hegemony forces struck at Outpost Kronos, a vital Coalition supply hub near the front lines. The attacking force was massive, 3 times larger than typical hegemony battle groups. Admiral Vasquez, aboard the upgraded Thunderchild, led the Coalition. Response: 6 human ships joined 22 Coalition vessels in a formation that would have been considered suicidal under previous doctrine. They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers, Elena observed as the enemy fleet appeared on long-range sensors. Typical hegemony hammer approach. Her XO, Commander Williams, nodded. They're expecting us to fall back to defensive positions around the outpost. Which is exactly what we won't do, Elena smiled. Signal the fleet, execute Operation Thunderbolt. Instead of forming a defensive perimeter around Kronos, the Coalition human fleet accelerated directly toward the hegemony armada. The unexpected aggression momentarily confused the hegemony commanders, buying precious seconds. The human ships moved into predetermined positions, their enhanced shields absorbing the initial hegemony salvos. Coalition vessels followed in their wake, protected from the heaviest fire. Initiate MWAR protocols, Elena ordered. The human innovation that most surprised the Coalition was their emphasis on electronic warfare. While Coalition and hegemony ships relied primarily on energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, humans had developed sophisticated systems to disrupt enemy targeting, communications, and coordination. Across the hegemony fleet, systems began failing. Targeting computers showed phantom readings. Communication between ships degraded into static. Coordinated attack patterns dissolved into confusion. Now, Elena commanded. Hit their command ships. The Coalition human force struck with precision, concentrating fire on identified command vessels. 3 hegemony capital ships were disabled in the first pass, their coordination centers destroyed. Without central direction, the hegemony's numerical advantage became meaningless. Individual ship captains fought bravely, but couldn't maintain the cohesion their tactics required. 2 hours later, the battle was over. The hegemony fleet had been decimated, with over 40% of their vessels destroyed or disabled. The remainder had retreated in disarray. Coalition losses were minimal. 3 ships destroyed, 7 damaged but repairable. In the aftermath, as repair crews worked to save damaged vessels and rescue survivors, Coalition officers gathered on the Thunderchild to debrief. I've never seen anything like it, admitted Commander Trell, a veteran of 17 major engagements against the hegemony. We've been fighting them for nearly 3 decades, and in one battle you've shown us a completely new way to defeat them. Elena shook her head. Not new, just different. The hegemony relies on predictable patterns and overwhelming force. They expect the same from you. When you show them something unexpected, their entire strategy collapses. It's not just your technology, Giral observed. It's how you think. Your species hasn't been conditioned by decades of fighting the same enemy the same way. Over the next year, the pattern repeated across a dozen battlefronts. Human-led Coalition forces abandoned defensive tactics in favor of targeted strikes against hegemony command and control systems. The once mighty Imperial fleets found themselves consistently outmaneuvered by smaller, more agile enemy forces. On the hegemony homeworld, Emperor Vexthar summoned Admiral Nix for an explanation. "How is this possible?" the Emperor demanded, his ceremonial armor gleaming in the throne room's harsh light. "How can these primitives, these humans, so thoroughly disrupt our military supremacy?" Admiral Nix knelt, his head bowed. "Majesty, we underestimated them. Their technology is formidable, but it's their unpredictability that makes them dangerous. They don't fight like any species we've encountered." "And our response?" "We're adapting our tactics, developing countermeasures to their electronic warfare. But it will take time. I request permission to withdraw our forces from forward positions to more defensible territory." The Emperor's expression darkened. "Retreat? The hegemony does not retreat." "Not retreat, Majesty. Strategic redeployment. If we continue as we are, our losses will be catastrophic." For the first time in the Emperor's reign, he was forced to acknowledge a truth no hegemony leader had faced in centuries. They were losing. The war reached its turning point at the Battle of Nexus Prime. The strategically vital system had been under hegemony control for 15 years, a constant reminder of coalition defeats. Now a combined human coalition fleet prepared to reclaim it. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Thunderchild, now the flagship of the Allied fleet. Around her, a force of 120 vessels, the largest concentration of coalition military power ever assembled, prepared for what could be the decisive engagement of the war. "The hegemony has fortified the system extensively," reported Strategic Officer Commander Williams. "Orbital weapons platforms, minefields, and at least 60 capital ships." Elena studied the tactical display. "They're expecting us to attack along the established transit routes. Instead, we'll use the new quantum fold drives to emerge directly in the inner system." The quantum fold technology was humanity's greatest contribution to the war effort, a revolutionary propulsion system that allowed ships to bypass normal space entirely for short jumps. Unlike traditional FTL drives, it left no detectable signature until the moment of emergence. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Communications Officer Park, now a full commander. "Coalition forces are in position." Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define not just the war, but humanity's place in the galactic community. Execute quantum fold. All ships, combat protocol Epsilon. The Allied fleet vanished from normal space. 10 seconds later, they reappeared, in the heart of Nexus Prime, directly among the stunned hegemony defense force. Before the hegemony commanders could react, human electronic warfare systems disabled their communications. Coalition vessels launched precision strikes against orbital defense platforms. Human Marines deployed to key installations in specialized boarding craft. The hegemony forces fought desperately, but their carefully planned defenses had been bypassed completely. Within 6 hours, the bulk of their fleet was destroyed or captured. Nexus Prime, symbol of hegemony dominance, had fallen. As coalition forces secured the system, Elena received a priority communication from Earth. 5 more human warships had been completed ahead of schedule and were en route to join the fleet. Additionally, the first graduates of the Joint Human Coalition Officer Academy were ready for deployment, a new generation of leaders trained in innovative tactics. The message concluded with a simple statement that resonated across the galaxy. "Humanity stands with our allies. Together, we will end this war." 3 months after Nexus Prime, representatives of the hegemony requested peace talks. Their empire, which had once controlled a third of the galaxy, now fought desperately to defend its core systems. The war that had seemed eternal was approaching its end. As Elena prepared for the negotiations, she reflected on how far humanity had come in such a short time. From an isolated species on a single planet to a decisive force in galactic affairs, all because a damaged ship had crashed in the right place at the right time. The final peace treaty, signed aboard the Thunderchild where the humans had first entered the conflict, created a new galactic order. The hegemony was reduced to its original borders, with former conquests either returned to the coalition or granted independence. Human representatives stood equal with those of species that had traveled the stars for millennia. As the ceremony concluded, High Commander Jural approached Elena. "I remember when you first arrived at Outpost Gamma 7, he said. "Many doubted that your species could truly change the course of this war." Elena smiled. "You took a chance on us. And you exceeded every expectation." Jural gestured to the viewport, where ships from dozens of worlds orbited peacefully. "This galaxy will never be the same. The moment that first human warship entered the fight, everything changed." Elena looked out at the stars, no longer distant points of light, but homes, and destinations for a humanity now finding its place among the cosmos. "We're just getting started," she said.